I still remember the first time I saw her, sitting across the classroom, completely unaware that she would one day become my everything. From awkward glances in college to late-night talks, secret laughter, and endless dreams. This is the story of how two strangers fell in love, faced the world together, and built the life they had always imagined. Chapter 1. The First Glance. The first day of college still feels like yesterday. I walked into the campus with my bag strapped tightly on my shoulders, pretending to be confident while hiding the nervousness that bubbled inside me. New place, new faces, new beginning. It was overwhelming. I found a corner seat in the classroom, the kind where you can disappear, quietly and observe everything without being noticed. And then she walked in. I don't know what it was, her calm presence, her soft smile, or just the way she carried herself, but my eyes followed her as she searched for a seat. She chose a spot a few rows ahead of me, placed her books carefully, and sat down. At that moment, I didn't think of love or forever. All I thought was, she seems different. The class went on, but my mind was elsewhere. I caught myself looking at her more than at the blackboard. She was taking notes with full concentration, occasionally moving her hair away from her face. Something about her felt peaceful. A week later, destiny played its first trick. We were put into the same group for a project. I was nervous to talk to her, but I tried to sound casual. "Hi, I started." She smiled politely and said, "I know. You sit at the back, right?" Her voice was soft yet confident. That small moment broke the ice between us. We started working on the project together with two other classmates, meeting in the light, discussing ideas, and sometimes just talking about random things. The project itself wasn't memorable, but what I remember is her. The way she spoke, the way she laughed, the way her eyes lit up when she explained something she cared about. She had this quiet strength, a kind of self-assurance that made her stand out. One evening, after finishing our work, we sat outside on the campus lawn. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and pink. For the first time, we spoke about life beyond studies. "Where do you see yourself in the future?" I asked, half curious, half wanting the conversation to never end. She looked at the horizon for a while before answering. "I want to go abroad. Maybe the US. Work hard, live freely, see the world. I just want a life where I feel like I'm truly living, not just surviving." Her words stayed with me long after that day. I didn't know where I wanted to be yet, but I knew one thing. I wanted to be wherever she was. Back then, I didn't understand it fully. But that first glance, that first conversation, that first laughter we shared, it was the beginning of something that would change my entire life. Chapter 2. The Spark of Friendship. After that first project together, something changed between us. We were no longer just classmates who nodded at each other in the hallways. Slowly, a quiet friendship began to grow. It started with small things. A smile when we passed by in the corridor, saving a seat for each other in class, sharing notes before exams. At first, it all seemed casual, but deep down, I knew these little moments meant more than I admitted to myself. One afternoon, we were both in the library, pretending to study but clearly distracted. I don't remember how the conversation started, but soon we were talking about childhood memories, favorite movies, and the silly habits we never told anyone else. She laughed so freely that day, the kind of laughter that makes your heart feel lighter just by hearing it. "You know," she said between giggles, "you're actually funny when you try." I pretended to be offended, but inside, her words made me glow. Day by day, our conversations grew longer. She would scold me for being careless with assignments, and I would tease her for being too serious. Yet, beneath all the playful banter, there was a comfort, a feeling of belonging. With her, I could be myself without fear of being judged. I remember one evening when it rained heavily. Everyone was rushing for shelter, but we got stuck near the library under a small shade. She was shivering slightly, water dripping from her hair, and without thinking, I offered her my jacket. She hesitated for a moment before slipping it on. The jacket was far too big for her, and she looked so small, so beautiful, that my heart skipped a beat. She caught me staring and asked softly, "What?" I shook my head quickly, pretending it was nothing. But deep inside, it was everything. From that day, I knew she was becoming more than just a friend. She was becoming the reason my mornings felt brighter. The reason college didn't feel like a burden anymore. I found myself waiting for her texts, looking for her in the crowd, and smiling at things only because they reminded me of her. One night, while studying for exams, my phone buzzed. Her message popped up. "Are you actually studying, or did you fall asleep already?" I smiled at the screen. Somehow, even a simple text from her felt like the sweetest part of my day. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just friendship anymore. Somewhere between the laughter, the scoldings, the shared notes, and the rainy evening, my heart had quietly chosen her. And though I hadn't said it out loud yet, I knew. She was becoming my favorite chapter in life. Chapter 3, Love Blossoms. By now, our friendship had become the center of my college life. Every day began with the thought of seeing her, and every night ended with a conversation or a simple text from her. We never admitted it, but something deeper was quietly growing between us. I noticed it in the way she looked for me in a crowded classroom, the way she laughed a little louder at my silly jokes, and the way she trusted me with her secrets. One evening, after classes, we were walking across the campus together. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted with shades of orange and pink. She was talking about her dreams again, the places she wanted to travel, the books she wanted to write, the life she wanted to live. I listened quietly, not because I had nothing to say, but because I loved hearing her voice. At one point, she stopped walking, looked at me, and asked, "What about you? What do you want from life?" I paused for a moment before answering. Honestly, I don't know yet, but I do know one thing. Whatever it is, I want someone like you in it. She blinked, surprised. For a second, she didn't say anything. Then she smiled softly and turned away, her cheeks faintly pink. That was the first time I felt that maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way. Days turned into weeks, and our bond only grew stronger. We started spending more time together, studying, eating in the canteen, sitting under our favorite tree on campus. It wasn't about where we were. It was about being together. There were moments when our hands brushed accidentally, and both of us pulled away shyly, our hearts racing. Moments when our eyes met across the classroom, and we looked away, smiling to ourselves. These little things, so simple, so ordinary, were quietly turning into love. The confession happened in the simplest way. It was late evening, and we were sitting on the college rooftop, looking at the stars. The city lights twinkled below us, and the world felt quiet. She was talking about how fast time was flying, how soon college life would end. I didn't want that moment to slip away. Without saying what I had held in my heart for months, taking a deep breath, I said, "Can I tell you something?" She looked at me curiously. Of course. My heart was pounding, but I managed to whisper, "I like you. More than just a friend." For a moment, silence hung between us. I feared I had ruined everything. But then, she smiled, the kind of smile that could light up 1,000 nights, and replied softly, "I was waiting for you to say that, because I like you too." That was it. No grand gestures, no dramatic music, just two hearts speaking honestly under a sky full of stars. But to me, it was the most beautiful moment of my life. From that night onward, everything changed. Holding hands no longer felt accidental. Sitting together felt like home. And every look, every word, every laugh carried a new kind of magic. The magic of love finally confessed. It was the beginning of us. Chapter 4, The Test of Time. Falling in love was magical. But staying in love, that was where the real story began. After that night on the rooftop, our days together felt different. Everything had a new warmth. Holding her hand on quiet walks, sharing meals in the canteen, studying late in the library, it all felt more meaningful because now, we belonged to each other. But life doesn't stay like a fairy tale forever. Reality has its way of testing love. Exams came closer, internship started, and the pressure of the future began to creep in. We were no longer just two people in love. We were also two students fighting to build careers, trying to prove ourselves to the world. There were days when stress made us short-tempered. Days when I wanted more of her time, but she was buried in assignments. Days when she wanted me to be serious, but I joked my way out of responsibilities. We argued, sometimes over silly things, sometimes over things that really mattered. I still remember one evening when we had our first real fight. I was late to meet her because I had gone out with friends, forgetting she was waiting near the campus gate. By the time I arrived, she was upset. "You don't take anything seriously," she said, her voice low but sharp. I tried to brush it off with a smile, but she didn't smile back. For the first time, I saw tears in her eyes. "Do you even care about us?" She asked softly. That question hit me harder than anything else, because the truth was, I cared more than I had ever cared about anything in my life. I took her hand, held it tight, and said, "I'm sorry. You're right. I get careless sometimes, but don't ever doubt this. You're the only thing I'm sure about." She looked at me for a long moment before finally leaning against me. That night taught me something important. Love isn't just about sweet moments, it's also about patience, understanding, and learning from mistakes. Despite the fights, we always found our way back to each other. In fact, those little cracks made our bond stronger, because each time we argued, we chose to fix it instead of letting it break. Graduation slowly approached, and with it came uncertainty. We had dreams. She wanted to go abroad. I wanted to build something meaningful, but the path ahead was unclear. Would our families accept us? Would distance come between us? Could our love survive the pressures of real life? We didn't have all the answers, but one thing was certain: we wanted to face it together. I remember her saying one night, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in mine." And I promised her the same, because by then, it wasn't just about love anymore. It was about building a life side by side. No matter how difficult the journey would be, the test of time had begun. And though it wasn't easy, our hearts held on tightly, knowing this love was worth every fight, every struggle, every sleepless night. Chapter 5. Tying the Knot. College life ended faster than we imagined. One day we were sitting under the campus tree, laughing about silly things, and the next day we were wearing graduation gowns, holding our certificates, and smiling for pictures. But behind the smiles was a silent question: what now? We both knew love was no longer just about stolen moments and secret messages. If we wanted a future together, it was time to take the biggest step: marriage. And with that came the hardest part: convincing our families. I still remember the night I told my parents about her. My heart was pounding as I spoke, afraid of what they might say. I told them everything: how we met, how she made me better, how she wasn't just my love but my best friend. There was silence at first. Questions followed. Worries about career, stability, and whether we were rushing things. It wasn't easy, but I kept reminding them, she's the one I want to spend my life with. Slowly, they began to see the sincerity in my eyes. On her side, the journey was no easier. She told me later how she sat with her parents, nervous yet determined, explaining why I was the one for her. There were doubts, fears, discussions, but just like me, she stood firm. She chose me. After weeks of conversations, hopes, and prayers, both families agreed. It wasn't just our victory. It was the moment our love turned into something bigger than us. The wedding day is a memory carved into my heart forever. I remember standing there, nervous yet overwhelmed with joy, waiting for her. And then she walked in, dressed beautifully, glowing with the kind of light that no words can describe. In that moment, everything else faded. It felt like the whole world had stopped, and it was just her and me. When we exchanged vows, I wasn't just promising to be her husband. I was promising to be her friend, her partner, her strength, her home, forever. The ceremony was filled with laughter, tears, blessings, and love. Our friends from college cheered. Our family smiled, and deep down, I knew this was the beginning of the life we had always dreamed about. That night, as we sat together as husband and wife for the first time, she whispered, "Can you believe it? From sitting in the classroom to sitting here as partners for life." I smiled, held her hand tightly, and said, "I believed it the day I met you." Marriage wasn't just the union of two people. It was the union of every little memory we had created together. The first glance, the first laugh, the first fight, the first confession. It was the promise that no matter where life took us, we would always walk hand in hand. That day, our love story became a lifelong journey. Chapter 6. The Dream of the US. Marriage gave our love a new meaning. We were no longer just two people in love. We were partners building a future together. And one dream kept coming back in our conversations: the US. It started with late-night talks. After long days at work, we would lie down, staring at the ceiling, imagining what life could be like in another country. What if we lived in a small apartment in New York? She'd say, her eyes glowing. Or maybe California, with beaches nearby, I'd add, smiling. We laughed. But behind the laughter was a genuine desire to build a life that felt like ours, in a place where opportunities were endless. The decision wasn't easy. Leaving family, comfort, and everything familiar behind was terrifying. But the thought of chasing our dreams together gave us courage. The process itself was a journey: endless paperwork, applications, visa appointments, waiting in long queues, facing rejections, then trying again. There were nights when she would sit by the window, worried, and whisper, "What if it doesn't happen?" I would take her hand and say, "If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then the day after. But one day, we'll make it. Together." Those words weren't just promises. They were the strength that kept us going. Finally, after months of effort, we got the approval. I still remember the day the email arrived. She screamed with joy, tears rolling down her cheeks, and hugged me tightly. In that moment, every sleepless night, every anxious prayer, every setback, it all felt worth it. The day we boarded the flight was emotional. Our families came to the airport, giving us hugs, blessings, and teary goodbyes. As the plane took off, she held my hand tightly. Her eyes were misty, but her smile was full of hope. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. I nodded, squeezing her hand. "With you, always." Looking out of the window at the shrinking lights of our homeland, I realized this was more than just a journey across oceans. This was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where we would build everything from scratch, together. The US wasn't just a place on the map for us. It was the dream we had whispered about since our college days. And now, we were finally stepping into it, not as two individuals, but as one.